Welcome back to MGD 111 Photoshop 1. Today we're going to continue looking at selection tools. This time we're going to look at what we call the wand tools. Those are right below our lasso tools. It defaults to one called the quick selection tool, and then there's one below it called the magic wand tool. So how do these work? Let's zoom out of our picture a little bit here. The quick selection tool works as sort of a brush, and what happens is if I start just kind of drawing in a certain area, it selects the pixels of a certain color range where my cursor is, plus the pixels that are connected to it that are similar. So watch as I draw through this. It's selecting the pixels that are connected that fall within a certain range of blue. And it's taking its time to think here. Notice it actually started collecting some of the white pixels down here now too. So we want to be sort of careful with using this tool because it's kind of an unpredictable tool. I know a lot of people who like using this, but notice if I get just a little bit too awry, suddenly, oh, it's picking up all these white pixels. Let's say I wanted to maybe try to color her jacket here. I need to deselect first. Let's just zoom in. Notice as I color it, it picks that up, but it also picked up part of her face too, and it left out this white part here. I don't particularly think this is a very great tool unless you're using something that happens to have a very contrasty and defined set of colors. I know some people who love that tool, that's why I show it to you. But underneath that one is what we call the magic wand tool, and this one is a lot more useful. The magic wand tool, we have a couple things that we need to consider, what we call the point sample and the tolerance. Now, if I just click somewhere in the sky here, you notice it highlighted a huge chunk of the sky. So why did it do that? Well, what it did is it measured a single point exactly where I clicked, 1 pixel, and it selected all the pixels that are connected to that pixel that are within a certain color range. And that's what we call tolerance. And it works like in real life. The more tolerant the brush is, the more variation it will accept. The less tolerant it is, the less variation it will accept. Let me show you an example. I'm going to set the tolerance down to 5, and I'm going to click in the same spot again. And you notice it selected a much smaller area. So it only selected the blue pixels that were just a little bit darker and a little bit lighter, or a little bit to this shade or a little bit to that shade. I'm going to set the tolerance now to 85. Kind of click in the same area here. And notice it picked up a huge block of the sky there. But notice when it got down into this white range here, it was just a little bit too different for it to accept. Now, just like with all our other selection tools, if I hold down the Shift key, I can add to that selection. But watch what happens if I click in these clouds here. Uh-oh, it picked up all this snow too because the tolerance was pretty high. So what we need to do when we're using the magic wand tool is experiment with the tolerance. I believe the default setting is 32. If you decide that it's not picking up enough pixels, just increase it a little bit, maybe 45. Hold down the Shift key, click in the same spot again. And then the key is don't move too far away as you click on more. Oops, that was too much. Let's set the tolerance a little lower now, maybe 15. Click in these clouds here. Hey, that's pretty good right there. Now, bear in mind, this is not the be-all, end-all of selections because, take a good look here, you'll see, oh, there's a stray pixel that didn't get picked up. Let's go to the top corner up here behind our palettes. You can see there's a few stray pixels up there too. You have to be very careful with this particular tool. I find, again, it's best if there's one particularly very bright color that's separated from the rest of the picture. It works pretty well. You'll notice here it sort of tried to pick up a little bit of her jacket because there's some light blue pixels on the edge. It missed a few pixels in here. With practice, you can get pretty good at using this particular tool. Like I said, I hardly ever use the quick selection, but the magic wand tool can be pretty amazing. Like if I just wanted to pick out this kid's blue jacket here, it's a good chance with a few clicks and maybe changing my tolerance a little bit, I can get all that with just a few. And at least I've got it pretty close to where I want it to be. Then again, I can always use my other selection tools. Remember, you can switch back and forth between selection tools here. So I'm going to use my polygon lasso and deselect. Oops. I'm going to go in and deselect his hat. And be careful when you double click because suddenly it deselected. That's okay. What happened here is I clicked one time too many. If I just do Command Z, it takes me back to where it was. Or if I use my history palette, I can go back and just make sure I go to the right spot. That is one tricky thing about using those lasso tools, is if you double click in the wrong spot, sometimes it'll automatically or accidentally deselect. Don't panic. And that's the key to Photoshop, really, is don't panic when you click on something that isn't quite what you want it to do, or if it's stuck or something. The more you click on stuff, the more steps you add to your history palette, and the further away you get from being able to revert in history a little bit here. So anyway, that's the Magic Wand and the Quick Select tools.